One of the most annoying feelings in the world is when you're deeply immersed in a televised story, waiting to see where the drama takes you next, only for an abrupt ending to pull the rug right out from under your feet. Sopranos fans know this feeling quite well, as the series concluded with a jarring mid-scene fade to black that many viewers assumed to be a technical glitch, but it wasn't. But fear not, Sopranos loyalists, wrestling fans can empathize with your pain. It's not uncommon in professional wrestling for the matchmakers to assemble a storyline that captivates you in some way, interesting you in the next phase of the plot, only for the entire thing to dissipate unexpectedly. Political reasons, injuries, changes of heart, whatever the reason may be, the history of wrestling has had its share of teases that failed to deliver. And if you know anything about the forthcoming entries on this list, if you experienced them while they were in progress, prepare to get irritated all over again by the maddening what ifs. I'm Adam Pacitti from Cultaholic.com, and these are 10 frustrating, unconcluded wrestling storylines. Join us! Number 10, Boss into Flame. Everybody loves a good whodunit story, don't they? Who shot JR? Who shot Mr. Burns? Who dropped the screw in the tuna? WWE staged a rather controversial whodunit in June 2007, one day after the infamous Sopranos finale, coincidentally enough. Vince McMahon, on his own appreciation night, was immolated via a bomb-rigged limousine, and the suspects were the entire WWE roster, but definitely not Paul London. Having a character die could be seen as a bit tasteless, but questions of taste aside, the angle still could have turned out great, but an actual wrestler's death ended up putting the brakes on it. Less than 2 weeks after the limo exploded, Chris Benoit murdered wife Nancy and son Daniel before hanging himself in his Georgia home. There was no way WWE could carry on with an angle steeped in not only death, but at the very least attempted murder, when actual murders from one of their own talents were all over the news. Number 9, the Sister Act. As of this video, Bray Wyatt is on the good side of WWE fans once more, turning heads in his role of a satanic Mr. Rogers. The role of a children's show host with sinister overtones has been a welcome change for Wyatt, who for several years previous has done little more than spout the same darkened gibberish to little return. At one time, the oft-referenced Sister Abigail, a wizened mentor to a young Bray, seemed destined for an appearance on WWE TV on some distant day. And we were about to get the good sister herself in 2017, which was to be Bray in a different costume. The brief teases of Sister Abigail were setting up some sort of Avatar-centric brawl for TLC that year against Finn Balor's demon form, but the match never came to be. Wyatt was forced to pull out of the TLC card due to a viral infection, and the angle was subsequently dropped. It's unknown if Sister Abigail will ever truly emerge in a WWE arena, but if so, hopefully it's somebody else playing her. Number 8, Dream's Nightmare. It took a lot to unsettle the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, a confident and proud working man champion whose blue-collar attitude and colourful rhetoric made him a wrestling idol. But in 1988, manager Baby Doll shook Dusty to his very core. She claimed to know a secret about Rhodes and demanded Dusty gave Larry Zbyszko a US title match, or she would reveal the awful truth. Baby Doll then showed Rhodes the contents of a manila envelope, which caused a perturbed Dusty to walk off without saying a word. And then, nothing. Baby Doll was actually fired from Jim Crockett Promotions shortly after Baby Doll herself claimed that she was let go because her husband, wrestler Sam Houston, worked for WWE, and that Crockett Brass felt it presented a conflict of interest. Whether that was the case or not, a potentially hot storyline, one putting the hero of the working class in an unthinkable and compromising position, had lots of potential, but the excitement was stamped out quickly. Number 7, Game Changer. Some of Ric Flair's best matches after age 50 came in the fall of 2005, when he was matched up against longtime admirer Triple H. Their steel cage match at Taboo Tuesday and Last Man Standing War at Survivor Series were the sort of old-school bloodbath that those who enjoyed Cody vs. Dustin would love. The rivalry between the two good friends began during Raw's return to the USA Network, when Trips beat Flair bloody, seemingly out of the blue. What was Hunter's motivation for doing this? Well, if you watch the beatdown, Helmsley yells things like, "Did you think I was just going to let it go?" and "Did you think I was just gonna let it fly?" meaning that Flair had committed some sort of unforgivable act in the eyes of the game. But we never did find out what that act was, and it was never mentioned again, as Helmsley's motive for the attack was simply because he felt it was time for a broken down Flair to be put out to pasture. Not exactly imaginative, is it? Number 6, worked into a shoot. Brother, Vince Russo has long been a controversial figure in professional wrestling, and never was his penned madness more evident than in WCW during the fateful year of 2000. His pièce de résistance, if that's the right phrase here, was to walk out at Bash at the Beach 2000 and bury Hulk Hogan for his political maneuverings. Russo's fiery rant followed an angle where world champion Jeff Jarrett uneasily laid down for Hogan, allowing to pin him for the gold. What was supposed to happen was that Hogan would return months later to basically tell whoever the champion was, hey, I've got the real belt, and do a unification match. But Hogan was so incensed by Russo apparently going off script to badmouth him that he never returned to WCW, and in fact filed a defamation lawsuit against Russo, which was later dismissed in 2003. Hogan's hard feelings over Russo's apparently unscripted and unplanned tirade submarined an angle that actually had potential once it got to the dual champion stage. And let's face it, in 2000, WCW needed all the substantial intrigue that it could get. Number 5, erase the HADE. One minute you think you're going to do battle with The Undertaker at WrestleMania, and the next you're gone from WWE after just one TV appearance. Such was the case of HADE Vanson, a 7-year veteran of promotions such as Frontier Wrestling Alliance, Real Quality Wrestling, and IWA Puerto Rico, who signed with WWE in 2007. The following year, Vanson debuted on an episode of SmackDown in a rather dark and foreboding vignette where he promised that he and an army of followers were on their way. Vanson, who seemed to be equal parts Fallen Angel and Broken Matt, was reportedly set to battle The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25, using his gallery of minions to try and wear the dead man down in the weeks and months prior. But after that video aired, Vanson was told that WWE was putting the angle on hold. A month later, he was released from the company and ended up leaving the business altogether. The only evidence of this incredible story is the lone 80-second vignette from that December 2008 SmackDown that promised big things. Number 4, feeling humdrum. In a sense, this entry had kind of a conclusion, but it was well after the fact and done as a rather cheeky nod to the unresolved plot point. In June 1999, Macho Man Randy Savage orchestrated a murderous ambush in which he has WCW World Champion Kevin Nash lured into the back of a limousine. What is it about wrestling limos and the month of June? Which Savage drove into a position where it could be rammed by a white Humvee. So who drove the Hummer? Hulk Hogan and Sting were accused well after the angle took place, but neither was fingered as the culprit. Savage later promised to reveal the person as his new bodyguard when he battled Dennis Rodman at Road Wild, though that reveal never came to pass. In the end, the angle was quietly dropped, save for Eric Bischoff committing his own White Hummer-related assault in April 2000, just to give a sort of half-assed payoff to the whole thing. Kind of like Hornswoggle being revealed as the anonymous Raw GM. Jesus Christ. Number 3, the mystery box. When Shane McMahon returned to WWE in February 2016 after a 6-year-plus absence, the response was utterly enormous. The crowd in Detroit nearly blew the roof off of the Joe Louis Arena, treating Shane like a conquering hero. Of course, if the fans could all see the future, they'd have crossed their index fingers in his direction, but that's another story. Upon re-emerging to confront his father and sister, Shane began speaking bravely and broadly and apparently had the goods on Papa Vince. See, Shane possessed some sort of mysterious lockbox that contained secrets about his father, which were apparently sufficient enough to blackmail the old man in a baby doll-like fashion. What could have possibly been inside? Plans for a WBF relaunch? A tuft of Tom McGee's chest hair? A book called 1,000,001 Ways to Bury Dean Ambrose? Whatever it was, we never found out, as Shane's return led to a confusing and muddled angle with The Undertaker, where careers, control of Raw, and possibly a really nifty massage chair all hung in the balance, and not a lick of it made any sense. Number 2, Joe's Joyride. You'd think the cameraman would have done something, since he basically witnessed a shocking felony right before his eyes. There was Samoa Joe, leaving an Impact taping one night in 2010 when he was accosted by a herd of local neighborhood ninjas who then threw him into the back of a van and sped off into the night. Naturally, this heinous crime was treated like any other segment on Impact, on par with a Rob Terry versus Cody Deaner time killer. Even more naturally, we never did find out who those ninjas were. Literally weeks later, as Joe remembers it, Vince Russo called him and told him they were just going to bring him back without explanation because they were short on baby faces. They could have gone uber meta and had Russo call the kidnappers and demand Joe's release because they were short on good guys, but that would have probably been too clever for the given environment. Instead, the ninjas were relegated to the dustbin of history, and Joe had to make believe that he didn't just randomly get snatched up in the night. Number 1, Eyes on the World. Really, cameras catch every little backstage happening, from random random secret conversations to sneak attacks, so isn't the idea of extra voyeurism in wrestling a bit excessive? Not so in the late 90s WWE, when the Attitude Era stars had the chance of being scooped by GTV, the black and white tinted big brother that caught the sensitive moments of many a superstar, particularly ones they hoped nobody would ever see. And nobody was safe from its covert wrath. Speculation ran rampant as to the source behind the videos. Who was G? Goldust? Greg the Hammer Valentine? Gary Stridham? The Great Gazoo? Apparently, according to Chris Jericho, surrealist comedian Tom Green, who was popular at the time, was supposed to be revealed as the mystery voyeur, but that was scrapped after Vince McMahon decided he didn't think Green was funny. Given Vince's lowbrow sense of humor, that's gotta be a real eye-opener for the man behind Freddy Got Fingered, no? In the end, the secret footage gag concluded without the audience ever learning who was behind it.
Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think in the comments down below. You can follow us on Twitter at Cultaholic. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do here at Cultaholic, you can pledge to us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Cultaholic. And most importantly, don't forget to hit subscribe and join us.